Okay, Abby, thank you for coming on to the podcast today and gratefully giving us your time.
You're welcome. It's good to be here.
It's really great to have you on. Could you just let the listeners know a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do currently?
So, my name is Abby Langer. I'm a registered dietitian. I've been a dietitian for over 20 years. I am the owner of Abby Langer Nutrition. I'm based in Toronto, Canada, and I am the author of Good Food, Bad Diet, and very, very active on social media, trying to debunk all of the nutrition trends and diet garbage that we come into contact with every day.
Yeah, and I'm here for everything that you produce on there because it's just really great to have it broken down in a scientific way as well as to like help people understand why these things aren't shouldn't be followed.
Yeah, it's important because I think, there's so much misinformation out there, and I don't want to dumb it down for people. I think regular people without a science background will understand science the way I write it. And that is
Yeah.
intentional. I mean, you have to be able to understand the background information if you are to see how wrong some of these trends and people who promote them are.
Yes, and I think that's what I particularly like about your content as well, Abby, because it's easy to just like throw up a video and go like, this is absolute shit, but then to say this is why,
Yeah,
that helps people to understand and be like, ah, right, okay, because the issue with these trends and obviously I term this podcast kind of like wellness culture because wellness culture has almost become a as bad of diet culture in and of itself, even though there's wellness in the title. But these people use credentials and sort of fancy language to try and get their point believed.
right.
So
That's
you
exactly
have
right.
to yeah, so you have to use the scientific evidence to be like, actually, no, 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 this is actually the truth, which is what I like about your content.
Yeah, it's so confusing for people because so many people who we're supposed to trust, like doctors, pharmacists, even dietitians, they are on social media all over the place promoting the craziest and I think potentially harmful things. And so it becomes confusing for the consumer, obviously, because these people who we have been taught to trust are now throwing around, just stuff that isn't true, and it really it's really confusing for people.
Hmm. Yeah, it is. I've not been in the industry as long as you have, and I don't have a dietetics degree as such. Just a few different nutrition qualifications, certifications. Luckily, from people who I trust a lot, and so I can see the pseudoscience through it. But for other people who don't have any of that background, it's very difficult to pick apart the differences between people who say they're doctors, dietitians, and using fancy, almost scientific language
Right.
to proclaim what they believe clearly as truth. It's very hard for people to then pick through that. I mean, people almost have to pick a side and have faith. It's kind of
Yeah,
like religion, really.
it is, and it becomes religion for some people, right?
Yeah,
There's
yeah, it does.
strong ties to from in between diet culture and religion, in that it's just a belief system. Almost it becomes some people's identity.
Yes. Do you think that's why people become so defensive when their stance is called out on, rather than being able to kind of like take the questioning of their bias and then think, oh, okay, I'll read into that a bit more and and do a bit of digging, because people claim it so much as their identity
Yeah.
and their like community. That's why they're so damn defensive of it.
Yeah, it's 100% why that happens. I mean, look at what's happening with the medical medium now. He is obviously a scammer, but I'm like, on someone posted, a Dr. Adrian Chavez posted an article in which the medical medium was featured, and this girl died because she basically took his advice.
Yeah.
And he was exposed. And so I commented on the post, and all these people are like attacking me, and they're just it boggles the mind. The guy like listens to spirits. He has no qualifications, but these people, it's a cult, and
Mm.
it's like a tribe, right? That's what we call them. We call them like the diet tribes, like medical medium, like the carnivores, even paleo people, whole 30, like all of these. It's a tribe where people feel like they belong. It becomes their identity. Anything you say against these people or diets, it's like they're personally being attacked, and they
Yeah.
absolutely cannot see anything beyond their own bias.
Yeah. 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 So true. How do you deal with that from a place of creating content and then getting attacked
Yeah,
that like because people can be aggressive,
yeah.
in the comments, in direct messages. How do you pull through that to still create content?
I get asked this a lot because I do get a lot of negative let me just put this into perspective. Like, out of 100 comments, 3 will be negative. I do
Mhm.
get the vast majority is positive, which is what helps me continue, right? Because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know I'm helping people. But, you know, I think it's just a matter of trying not to take it personally, although it's hard because it sort of is personal. And just
Mm,
understanding that at the end of the day, like, I don't want to write something that everyone's going to agree with, because that's
no.
boring. Like, I want people to read my stuff, and I want them to feel something. And, most people feel something good, but some people don't. And that's their problem, not mine. And, again, like, I write to engage people and to teach them something. And you're never going to write anything that resonates with everybody.
No, no, and I guess at least with you, as you said, you do it to evoke emotion, but also you do it to talk about what the science actually says
Yeah.
about, what the evidence base says about these things. And people
Yeah.
obviously take things very personally when they have a personal identity and bias towards a certain movement, particularly if they found that to be particularly kind of like beneficial or helpful for themselves as well. It's then difficult for them to see why that may have been the case and it wasn't maybe the case that they believed in the first place.
Right. Yeah. Like the placebo effect. Again, with the
Yeah,
medical medium, it's like, well, he's healed millions of people. Well, my autoimmune disease is better. Well, maybe your autoimmune disease is better because you cut out a bunch of foods, not because of his protocol. Like, it just it's blind faith, right? And
yes.
it's problematic, though.
It is because as you said, the placebo effect is very real, and we see that in
Right.
research, don't we? Where if people genuinely believe that they are taking something that is what they believe it to be, they get these results. We've seen it with kind of the performance enhancing drug placebo effect of people getting these, not as much as with performance enhancing drugs, but similar effects. And so if people go into something massive with that belief,
Yeah.
and as you said, there are other compounding variables that they'll change as well,
Right.
but they don't see that. It's like the whole like, well, it has to be all of it. It can't have just been these other few changes, let's say.
Right. And like the medical medium, like picking on him today,
I could see.
a lot of them will delete the negative comments off their social media and block people. Like, he blocked
Yeah,
me, he deletes stuff. And it's like, so when people go onto his pages, all they see is positive.
yeah.
And that also creates this belief that, like, everything's great and I'm going to do it and it's going to be great for me too. And that, I think, contributes to that placebo effect,
Mm,
that
yeah,
expectation.
yeah, yeah. It definitely does. Yeah, and I guess for people who are listening to this, I mean, it's difficult with this because people who are listening to this probably don't find this and think, "Oh, I want to listen to that because I am a fan of the medical medium." They probably haven't found this podcast thinking about. Probably people listening to this are fans of yours or fans of mine who then agree the same thing we do. So we're almost like creating our own echo chamber of
Right.
bias confirmation anyway. But for people who might see, the medical medium, or let's say, whoever Gwyneth Paltrow's doctor is, who was on a big podcast
Well,
recently,
cool.
you know,
Yeah.
that guy. I didn't even know his name because he means so little to me. But like, if they see these podcasts and they see these, these outlandish claims, how can people spot that? How can people spot red flags from sort of wellness and diet culture and then see through this? Or do they just have to rely on following the right people?
I think there's a couple of red flags. The first one would be that you're being promised a miracle cure for something that's not curable. Listen,
Right.
like if a freaking smoothie cured autism, then like the medical community would have cured autism. And for those
Yeah.
people who will then rebut and say, well, mainstream medical and big pharma like wants to keep us sick, that's total bullshit. Of course it doesn't.
Yeah.
Do you not think that people in those communities have people in their lives who they love who are suffering? And I can assure you that finding a cure for autism, cancer, anything would be so profitable. It would blow everything else out of the water in terms of like, you know, giving us drugs to like keep us sick. Like it's not,
Yeah.
that's just ridiculous. I mean, so anyone who's promising to that some previously incurable disease can be simply cured with things that are found in your kitchen, just
Hmm.
like ridiculous. Also, someone like Stephen Gundry, for example, who has, or Mark Hyman, I just can't like, who sell like so many supplements, have all this like these stores with like all this shit in them, and it's like, you know what? I can't trust a provider who sells and makes money from like all of these supplements that they're promote. Like it's just it's not ethical to do
No.
that. No. So anyone who's selling supplements like that and promoting them, or like saying that you can't be healthy unless you take these supplements, or that you can't be healthy unless you eat an organic diet or something
Hmm.
very elitist like that, that's a
Hmm.
huge red flag as well.
Yes. Yeah, no, really good ones there, and you mentioned a couple of other people who are just red flags to follow in the industry anyway. I mean, it's funny because I feel like you follow these people purely to inspire your own content, whereas I
I
had to
actually
like
don't
unfollow
follow
these
them.
people completely. No, I
I
had
don't
to
follow
unfollow them
any
all.
of them. And it's funny because
No,
people are like, "Why are you being so awful?" Like, "Why just unfollow them and move on?" And I'm like, "I don't follow them." People send me things every day in my DMs like, "Look at this. Here's
yeah,
Bobby Parish Flav City like talking about the Dirty Dozen." Oh my god, like all I get so many videos. Sometimes I can't even watch them for my own mental health because I know they're going to be
yeah.
so awful. And yeah, so it's there's a lot out there, like a lot of bad stuff.
It's scary, really, because
Yeah,
it's platforms like Instagram and TikTok have I mean TikTok less so, but Instagram has some positives with regards to at least there are people who are producing good content out there.
TikTok
But
is
there are just so many. TikTok's awful.
it's awful, and the scary part about it is that anybody can appear credible, and they can go on there and they can say anything. They can literally
Yeah.
say anything. And they can
Hmm.
also promote stuff that's harmful to people's well-being, like to their health
Hmm.
and mental health and physical health, and get away with it. And people
Yeah,
actually believe them. And
I
it's
know.
crazy. It's so crazy. And I don't know how to manage it. Like honestly, I mean, you ask how can we figure out who's legit and who's not? It's hard sometimes, right?
Yeah.
um so you have to really like do your due diligence. And when someone sends me, the name of a doctor or someone who they follow, I look at their social media feed. Like I go in there and I look. Like I
Hmm.
don't just see look one post. I want to see like are they promoting cleanses? Are they promoting parasite cleanses and detoxes, and like what are they saying we should and shouldn't eat? All of that
Hmm.
stuff. Because there's clues in there about how this person practices and what their philosophy is in terms of nutrition and overall well-being.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. And as you said, I think that's the worrying thing about TikTok in particular is that it can be anyone.
Yeah.
Anyone saying anything
Right.
can just create an account. And
Right.
it seems that this, because you mentioned the red flags there of like, these miracle cures for things that haven't been cured yet, and these kind of chats against, big pharma, and how like, oh yeah, well, the medical industry just wants to keep us sick so they can profit off of us and all that.
It's
But what
ridiculous.
these claims just seem to get such virality.
Yeah.
Like if I went on to TikTok and said, this parasite cleanse to, cure MS, it would just go hyper viral.
Oh, totally.
Even
There's actually research that has been done shows that a novel idea that's complete misinformation spreads far faster and far wider than the truth on social media and the internet as a whole.
it boggles the mind that people don't do the same due diligence that you just mentioned there of like,
It's
okay, who
common
is this
sense
person? Who
too.
is this claim? Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's common sense. Like someone who talks to spirits should not be informing your health. Like, do you want to use a plumber next time you need someone to represent you in court? How about like I have like a friggin' airline pilot do your surgery? Like what? Where is this where we're at now? Because it is not a good place, right?
Yeah, and I wonder what makes that happen, though. Like to think about the people who might have autoimmune conditions or things where like they haven't found a treatment or a cure,
Yeah,
or they're struggling with things that like the medical industry don't have solid
right,
answers for yet. That increases almost the desperation for there to be an answer, and it's almost. I think that's the issue. My issue with wellness culture in particular, as well, is that like, oh hey, you have all these symptoms, you might have this like random
right.
thing, and this
And
random
let
thing
us
can only be cured by
sell
this
you
thing.
more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So like they, and it's fair enough because I know especially women have been brushed off by the mainstream medical forever, and it's unfair and it's not right. But in their place came all these snake oil salespeople who do just that. They're like, oh,
Mm,
you must have adrenal fatigue because you have all these friggin' 30
yeah.
vague symptoms that could be due to anything, and I'm going to sell you the cure because your doctor didn't know how to treat you, but I do. So
Mm,
that's how it happens. People are rightfully like desperate about for answers, and sometimes mainstream medicine doesn't have them,
mhm.
but these people always seem to have the answer.
Yes. Yeah, because for mainstream medicine to bring out something that they roll out across the board, it has to be very well researched, absolutely 100% safe. It has to have the evidence to show that it's actually, likely to help in
Right.
that instance as well. How
Yeah.
do you? Because I don't create content like yours, and purely because of the backlash, really, in terms of like, and also the lack of maybe confidence in calling things out as much. So I'm very much like I'll create positive content in terms of an intuitive eating, disordered eating approach.
Yeah.
Um, but when I've spoken to people who are more, let's say, wellness culture, a big thing is like, oh well, hey, modern medicine doesn't have all the answers. There's small independent research that confirms this claim, or research doesn't have all the answers, because what if it does help someone?
Yeah.
What How
What
can
if
you
it
kind of
does?
come back to that?
Yeah, well, what if it
Yeah,
does? I mean, at the end of the day, I tell people if it's not going to hurt you, then absolutely try
yeah.
it. Listen, if I got diagnosed, God forbid, with like some horrible disease, I would probably
Mhm.
try those things too. I but I would not say, "Oh, I'm not going to get chemotherapy because a raw diet." Crispy Cancer said that he beat his cancer with a raw diet, so I'm going to as well.
Yeah,
And that's what I always tell people, like, don't give up those conventional treatments that have the potential to save your life in favor of some unproven something that some guru is telling you to do. Like if it's not going to harm you, then absolutely try it. But
yeah,
be smart about it.
yeah. You almost like combination of such rather than like throwing
Yeah,
yourself all in. I know
yeah,
that there was a documentary actually on our side of the pond, on the BBC, which is the British, broadcasting
Yeah.
um, organization. They released a documentary actually by Dr. Giles Yeo, who documented clean eating, the dirty truth. And there was tales of that exact same thing, of people going onto raw diets or whatever to try and cure cancer, and unfortunately not making it. Like,
Right.
that's the outcome that you could be faced with, as you said, if you go down that path,
Yeah.
which is awful. Do you
It
feel
is.
like that's well, go on?
Well, there's research that shows that people who choose alternative treatments for cancer, I'm not talking about complementary treatments. Complementary are in addition to conventional treatment.
Yeah.
Alternative is like instead of a conventional treatment. People who choose alternative treatments for cancer have a far higher rate of death from the disease than people who choose complementary or just conventional treatments.
Mm.
So it's it's super dangerous. I don't know why people do it. Look at
Yeah.
Steve, for example. Steve Jobs is the example that people show, but a lot of other people do it too. I mean, there's people in my neighborhood who have died because they had breast cancer. They were like, "No, I'm going to try to do like a juicing treatment." No, they're dead. And young moms, like it's bad.
Yeah, and a very treatable version of it, really.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I think I liked what you said earlier about, if it's not going to harm you, go
yeah,
for it.
yeah,
Like, as you said, if I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition or something that's very, very drastic or very very life affecting, and you're getting medical treatment or trying your best with your doctors, and then there's something else that you want to try as well that won't harm you, and you have the privilege to attempt it. That's the thing as
yeah.
well that seems to be very big in wellness, is that, as you've said rightly in your book and in your content, it is privileged, and people,
Yeah.
like, they take offense to that word.
But it is. It's privilege.
Yeah,
Of course, it all costs money. It all costs a lot.
yeah,
Um, but when you mention it, I mean, the thing that I don't care who tries what. Like I don't care.
no,
And I'll say this again and again. Like I don't care what you do in your own time. But what I care about is when people go on social media and say this is the only way to do things. Don't trust, mainstream medicine. Don't trust, doctors or whatever. um, Trust us instead. Of course they're selling something too. um,
mhm,
and that's the danger here, like because we're all so different. you know I don't care. And like you're a private citizen, you can do whatever the hell you want, but like once you start making claims and promises to the population at large, like that is where I have to step in, and that's when I do, because it's too harmful, it's irresponsible, and I can't sit by and let that happen.
yeah. I think that's why it seems like you made it, like a personal mission as well, to
Yeah, it is.
create the content you
Totally.
have.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't want to see people get taken advantage of, and these people are lining their pockets. That makes me so angry. Like you're potentially hurting people, and you're making money from it. What? And you're spreading the dumbest, most irresponsible misinformation about people's health. Like how is this happening? I have to put a stop to it. And I mean obviously I'm not putting a stop to anyone, but like when I debunk things, that's my way of being like, hey, like, see this girl, she's saying the wrong thing. I don't know why she's saying it, but this is the right way to do things. And that's why, like, I get called out by some people. Oh, why do you make examples of people? And why don't you guys, why don't you just tell people what to do and not? And I'm like, no, because no one would watch my content. Do you think if
yeah,
like my page is not a place for toxic positivity? That does not belong on my page or in my life. And when I see a person making false claims and I know they have hundreds of thousands of followers and people are actually listening to them, I'm going to call them out because they're irresponsible and potentially hurting people, and people need to see that. So yeah, that's what happens. And it is my mission.
no, yeah, yeah. No, like, and when you put it that way, and especially as you said, oh, if I just created content and
Yeah,
just was like, hey, like, this is how you do this. People, as you said, like, people probably wouldn't watch it.
they
Like,
wouldn't. It's way more engaging, and it's better to teach people, see what this person is saying, this is wrong, and here's why it's wrong. And see how they're
Yeah,
selling this thing. These are tactics that you shouldn't listen to. So yeah, it's
yeah.
way more effective.
And that takes me back to the point I made at the very start of like at least it's followed up with here's why,
Yeah,
and here's what you can do, and as you said, then you're creating this content, and yeah, okay, you're going to ruffle some feathers, but as you're saying, it's hey, look, if you're doing this and it's working for you, that's fantastic.
yeah,
You've got the as long as it's not harming you, that's fine. But to come out and say, hey, this is the only way that you can be healthy, and you need to buy my extremely expensive set of supplements, but make sure that you only eat natural food. You're like, no, this is BS,
yeah.
and
It's
so you
like
can
makes
understand why.
people's lives worse, not better,
Yeah,
and wrecks their
yeah.
relationship with food, right?
I can totally attest to that as being a previous, paleo buff, a previous, Dave Asprey and Bulletproof
Oh
Coffee
no.
kind of believer. But that, because that was the community that I was in, as part
Yeah,
of the kind of the CrossFit community
yeah,
of like clean
absolutely.
eating, paleo, Bulletproof Coffee. You know, I was not drinking milk because I was doing the Whole30, but for some reason I was allowed Bulletproof Coffee.
Yeah,
Made no sense, but I believed it
yeah.
because it was that ridiculous
It's
that it
ridiculous.
sounded
Yeah,
true.
see, when it's a novel idea, it's misinformation, it spreads and people believe it because they're like, it must be true.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's also because when the great thing though, like because obviously short form content is short form content, right? And it lasts for a very little amount of time, and then you have to just kind of scroll down and see like, oh. But what I like is that you produce a new blog every week,
I
pretty
try.
much.
I try.
Yeah, but and then that's a bigger, a deeper dive into like some diet protocol or something else.
Yeah.
And then when people ask me about things, I usually actually send them to one of your blogs. Like that's what I've loved about your content. It's like
Right.
I could just look up your website and go like,
Yeah,
look at
I
Zoe
probably
review.
reviewed it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but then it's longer form and in more detail, which I love again because at least then it's from a place of like, okay, here are the claims and here's what the current body of research says, and this is why they're saying it. So at least then there's that you have that content to back up your short form content to
Yeah.
provide that that place of learning.
Yeah, people read it. Like, people watch my videos, they don't read the captions, and then they'll
No, of
comment.
course they don't.
I'm sometimes convinced that they didn't even watch the whole video, and then they just, like,
No.
rush to comment. I think people are just, like, just want attention, or I don't know what it is, wanna be heard, but, yeah, it's frustrating. But, yeah, I do, my blogs do have all the research. I make sure that I don't cite animal studies or any studies that are more than 5 years old. Like, I'm very strict about that. Although I do sometimes only when I have to. But yeah, I really thoroughly do the research and the deep dive into these topics and these diets because that's what people deserve, right?
Yeah. Yeah, massively. And I think is that when you mentioned there about I don't mention studies that are more than 5 years old, is that because there's usually more recent evidence that is better than because it's like
Yeah,
it turns over that quickly.
yeah, yeah. I want to make sure that I have all of the current research. Like, Um, I have a post on collagen, for example. I wrote it a while back. It all the research was outdated. Yesterday, yesterday, like last week, I redid the whole thing. It's all new research, and put up a completely new collagen post just because I know that the research does turn over in a lot of cases very, very quickly.
Hmm. And how do you stay? Like I'm actually really interested in and then how you personally stay on top of things because different people sign up for different research reviews. Or, I mean, do you just sit there with PubMed open every day over your
Yeah.
morning coffee and sit there for 3 hours?
So I am a member of Alinea, which is Alan Flanagan's sort of research community. So when things come up, I get a notification on that. I'm a member of examine.com, which is again like this website that reviews studies. And then just social media, the news, like if something comes out, I immediately like go and I look up the whole study. I will even if I can't interpret it, some of them are super complicated. I'll get someone to help me. I don't just read the abstract, but just what people are talking about too. And if there's no shortage of content for sure with that.
No, yeah. Well, and particularly if people are just sending you things
Yeah, they send me
every
a lot.
day.
Yeah, they do, and but I rarely miss a new research study.
No, good.
Yeah,
Yeah, and, and that's good, and it's good to hear that, as you said, that the standard of the info that you then produce, long form wise, having that kind of strict
yeah.
like classification, as long as you can, not use something that's kind of like 5 years pre.
Yeah, I
Um,
find that a lot of people who are not reputable in the industry use a lot of animal studies and really old studies to prove their claims, and
mhm,
that is just such a mistake. A lot of studies that are really poorly done that can be debunked or shut down, like, and I really don't do it. And if I have an opinion, or if I think that it's fact, or about something, and then I read something that challenges that, then I change my content to reflect it.
yeah,
Like with collagen, for example, I was always like, it's not worth it. These collagen powders are really expensive. They break down into individual amino acids in our body. So like, how does it work with wrinkles? But now, even though the research isn't super great, there's so much of it showing positives for collagen peptides that I'm like, you know what? I may have been wrong. I may, you know, it may be okay. It's free to try. So like, that's also the thing, is like I see all these people who are grifting and being like, this 2002 study on rats said this, and it's like, no, well, did you see this updated study that disproves that and all of that? And they just refuse to friggin' change their mind. But science, and nutrition science in particular, is so dynamic that you have
mhm,
to be up on the research. You have to be ready to accept new viewpoints and to change your mind, because if you don't, you're in the dark ages.
yeah.
And you're giving the wrong information to people. Why would you want to do that? What's the point?
Well,
Unless
no, yeah, unless well, yeah. I mean, because that was kind of going to be one of my questions was, and I want to touch back onto what you mentioned about like animal studies and in vitro studies and bat studies, um, because that's a great point. That as you know, the listeners won't understand why, so we should
yeah,
go into that. But with these people, because you just said, why would you want to stick with this outdated study? Do you think it's a confirmation bias that they refuse to see anything new, or do you think they just damn well believe in it, or do you think the people are doing it because it suits their financial gain? Like, do you think people are just blissfully ignorant, or do you think it's like a no, actually, I need to believe this because I've now created this business out of it?
all of it. All of it. I think
Yeah.
there are people who know that they're spouting the wrong information, but they have enough followers and enough people in their echo chamber that they can continue to do it,
Hmm.
and that they're making money from it. So why should they stop? And I think people are dumb. Like, I'm just gonna say it. Like, I think people are don't realize that they are completely biased, and don't there are people who don't have the knowledge to, like, I don't know, there's a lot of people who can't interpret research, but the people, if you're selling something and saying the research backs it up, you damn well better be able to friggin' produce that research and interpret it.
Hmm.
But that there's lots of people who can't. They sell things, they don't bother with the research, or they say, well, that's research proven, but they don't bother to read the study. They just, because they
Hmm.
know that a lot of people in the community can't interpret scientific research, and so they
Yeah.
won't bother, right? I see that all the time. Like Stephen Gundry, in
Oh
his
yeah.
Plant Paradox book, a lot of the citations weren't even relevant. Like, it's so weird. Like, why would you write a book and a bunch of the citations don't even apply to what you're trying to talk about? Like, it's very strange. But these people know that they're rarely checked into, and so they just go along their business.
Yeah, I think that's it, isn't it? Is that, as you said, they have that many followers that then like
Yeah,
support their echo chamber,
yeah, and they're making
and
so
are
much
rarely
money.
challenged. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
like Mark Hyman. Like Mark Hyman is a perfect example. And myself and so many other people will challenge him on social media. Like he'll post something and we'll be like sugar decreases your life by 10 years, every gram of sugar, like something stupid like that that he
yeah.
can't possibly back up. And people will be in the comments like, what research do you have? And he just ignores them. He never answers, never produces the research because there is none. But it doesn't matter because there's so many people who like him that like he doesn't have to produce that research.
No, and I mean, Mark Hyman and Stephen Gundry, both awful, and
Awful.
but the horrific thing is that like, you know, in the UK, for example, I'm not sure what it's like over where your side, but in the UK, there's still such like a big war on sugar as like a government policy.
Oh yeah,
And like, don't get me wrong, both you and I would agree that okay, like, minimize your added sugars and things like that. But everybody's diet is individualized, and people can kind of process it and all the rest of it. But like, there's an added tax on sugar drinks, for example, here, so they're more expensive than their diet. Rarely. So these people who quote these things without facts,
yeah.
oh, sugar, every gram of sugar adds takes off an extra 10 years of your life.
It's so sad.
They're almost confirmed by the government policies as well
Yeah,
because they have like an anti-sugar thing. It's just I feel like that's also why people believe it. They're like, oh yeah, we all know that sugar's bad and trying to kill us. It's like, no.
yeah. I it's there's a I've seen a couple of very problematic things come out of the UK, including labels that show how much exercise you have to do to burn off certain foods. I don't know if
Yeah, that's not come in yet. That's not come in yet, but that was lobbied. Yeah,
and then that Michael Mosley, that guy. Oh my god, why? And that dumb diet.
yeah. That's used in the NHS. That's used in the NHS now for
Yeah,
diabetes and things.
it's
Yeah,
like unbelievable. It's so I reviewed that on my site, by the way.
I know.
It was absolutely friggin' awful. And
Yeah,
the
it's one of the
NHS
worst.
uses it. I cannot even believe that nobody could ever sustain it. It's
No,
wrong. So wrong.
oh, it's bad. I mean, because I know that you have a big stance against like diet culture as well, and you talk a lot about having a great relationship with food and all the rest of it. And to tell you how far gone the UK are, I mean, I love the fact that we've got the NHS, but when people go in who are of and again it's BMI based, and there's a lot of negative weight stigma in our GP practices, which is horrific. But people of a certain BMI are put onto a diet club program called Slimming World.
Oh no. Graham,
Yeah,
the fitness chef, always talks about Slimming World and it looks unreal, like so awful. So
yeah, it's
awful.
bad.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
my god. It's so harmful. Like I know doctors here aren't much better, to be honest. They'll be like, yeah, you need to go on the keto diet. Like, why? I'm gonna put you on the keto diet, you idiot. Like,
yeah. Have you ever done it?
yeah, seriously. Have you ever done that diet? Like it just they don't get a lot of nutrition training. So I don't know.
Well, and it's BMI based, so it's like weight
Oh,
loss by any means necessary, rather than
yeah,
like healthy habit and lifestyle based. But my
extreme.
kind of take on, well, exactly, and my take on it as well is is kind of weight aside, with regards to a lot of clients I work with who have done Weight Watchers or Slimming World since the age of 5 or 6, is that actually they just have such awful relationships with food, which is why actually, okay, their diet quality might not be amazing, but that's because all they've been focusing on is like the points or the calories.
Yeah,
And then they've got such a terrible relationship with exercise because it's only ever been seen as a punishment rather than a way of life.
yeah. It's all bad. And you know what? I run a course currently. It's called Eating After 40. It's for
Yeah.
people after 40, mostly women. And I hear this. I mean, well, I counseled for 20 years or whatever. So like I've heard just the stories of people who like don't even see food, they see points. They don't
Yeah.
see food, they see calories. and it's so destructive and intrusive and disruptive and all of that stuff, and it takes a while. I teach them how to get out of that, right? But it's like a process, and it's sad, like people have that mindset for decades of their lives, and I'm like, no one's gonna, when you're on your deathbed, you're not gonna be like, I'm so glad I'm thin. No one's gonna be
No.
talking about you at your funeral like, oh, she was so fat, or or she looked great in those jeans. It's like, guys,
Mm.
things into perspective, okay? I know everyone wants to be healthy, and there's a lot of people who want to lose weight. I support them in that, but this stuff's not the answer.
No, I think because what you just said there, because I want to dig more into your program as well. But what you said there about no one will be saying these things at your deathbed, and
Yeah.
when you are on your deathbed as well, you will have wished that you lived life more,
Lived,
rather
yes.
than missed out on these things. But
Yeah.
I think the only issue is that because we are in such a wellness diet culture, thin by any means necessary society, or it definitely was in the last like 30 to 40 years.
Yeah.
Tides are definitely changing a lot more now. But when I chat with clients and they say, "Oh well, my mum always said, oh, if you were a bit thinner, you'd get a boyfriend," or things like that. It was just, but that's because that's what their mums would have said to them. Do you know what I mean? It's
Of
like
course.
so poisonous.
It's
That's kind of what's
poison.
inbred. Yeah.
Yes. And when you hear these things when you're really young, they become a part of you, and they become a
Mm.
negative core belief. And in my book and in my course, I talk about negative core beliefs, and I teach people how to neutralize them because they suck the life out of you. It takes one comment when you're young to completely shape, a belief about yourself. I need to be um, I need to weigh X or I'm not lovable. I need to look like this, or I'm less than. And it's terrible.
Mm.
Terrible.
And it makes me wonder as well when you think about the damage of dieting on relationships with food, and exercise, and also in terms of like body weight cycling in general. That if none of that ever happened at people's young age, whether they would have had a completely different you know body shape and metabolism and all these things.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, probably, but it happens in our youth, but then society again, like it just hammers us from all
Mm.
angles. And as we grow and even into adulthood, like there's still so much in the wellness industry in particular. I mean, just like tells people you need to be thin, and this is the
Mm.
thin ideal. Like you should look this way, or you're not good enough. You're just not good enough.
Yeah, it's sad. And I particularly liked your standpoint on that in your, in your blog and content in general of the, you want to have the best relationship with food you can, where
Yeah,
you're listening to your body and eating, yeah, eating a healthy diet in terms of, a good variety and plenty of plants and all the rest of it, but with a place that you're trusting your body signals and exercising regularly in a way you enjoy, and that's going to be your best like place rather than
yeah,
doing whatever means necessary to fit that thin ideal.
yeah. But I understand. Like, there's going to be some people listening to this who are probably going to say, "But I can't do that. My body
Yeah,
doesn't work that way." And yes, there are always exceptions to those rules, right? Some people
of course. All right.
who have uncontrollable cravings, who
Mm.
can't seem to stop eating, and it's not an emotional thing, it's a physical thing. And yes, those people do exist. So I do want
Yeah,
to just take the time to recognize them, and understand that not everyone can eat intuitively, if you will. Like, I'm not an
yeah,
intuitive eating dietitian, but
no,
um
sure.
yeah, so there are exceptions, and for sure, like now we're getting medications that can help those people, like
Yeah,
Ozempic. People ask me, how do you feel about Ozempic? I think it's amazing. I think, it's being abused by people who are rich, and they don't qualify, and it's awful. But they're just getting it from their like whatever doctors. But for
yeah,
people who I speak of, it's like, who cannot stop cravings, cannot um eat intuitively, it's done a
yeah,
lot of good. You just have to stay
yeah.
on forever.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's, I think that because earlier you were talking a lot about how there are these unconventional methods to cure certain ailments and things, and there's very much a kind of like food is medicine camp, and we have to be like very much like no, medicine is
No,
medicine, and that's
medicine.
why it exists.
Yeah,
And I like because you just said there that these medications exist for people who are of a larger body size, yes, or type 2 diabetes, but who also have either leptin resistance or very high kind of glucose insulin resistance to help them. As
yeah.
you said, it's being abused.
It can save their lives. Like, and the same with
Yeah,
bariatric surgery. People ask me all the time, like, what do you think of bariatric surgery? Thinking that I'm going to say it's awful. I'm like, it saves people's lives. Like, of course, not only should, these things be, um, are not only are they okay, they should be more accessible. I think they should be more accessible for people who qualify for them. Like Ozempic shouldn't cost
yeah.
$1,000 a month. That's insane,
Mm.
but if it improves the quality of somebody's life and their relationship with food and eating and helps them live their best life, I'm for it for sure.
Yeah, I think I think the key clarification there, as you said, is the qualifications for those things,
Yeah, of course.
because of the abuse from the private sector. And again, we just talked about how far gone the UK are in terms of NHS promoting Mosley's Fast 800 as well as Slimming World. But also, you can get Wegovy and Ozempic at a local pharmacy now. You just buy it over the counter.
What? Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah.
god, what? Whoa. Oh my god, but you have to be followed by your doctor. You can die. People get
Oh no,
pancreatitis,
like
they like vomit until they pass out. Like it's like a big problem.
yeah. So like I'm a like a big guy, and
Yeah,
my BMI is in the obese category. So
okay.
I could go and get it.
But who is doing the checks and balances? The pharmacist?
Well, because we have a high street chain called Boots.
I know Boots, yeah.
Yeah, and so there was talk about it being accessible over the counter at Boots, or you going to your doctor and getting weighed, and if you were in the BMI classification, you could get that permission slip effectively.
But that would be a prescription. But you can't just go into Boots and buy it, can you?
I hope not. It was a news article I saw that I did some content on where it was like Boots to sell Wegovy, and I haven't followed up to see whether it's just like over the counter, but it's
Okay, 'cause
very
that's where you
accessible.
would get it. You would go to a
Yeah,
pharmacy, right? But
yeah, yeah.
I hope you're not saying that it's available just like you can take it off the shelf or like if there's no checks and balances, like the pharmacist is giving it to you and just being like, see you later. You need to be
Well,
followed, like monitored.
yeah. Well, I mean, I'm kind of on Google now to kind of see where they've gone up to with it. Um,
Crazy.
get qualified support and wave goodbye. Free 10-week program, repeat prescriptions, free collection,
You
free
have a qualified
webinars. Get us
support.
started.
There's like places here, like some Medi Spa, like they'll just give it to you.
Yeah.
It's really bad. It's bad.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So complete an online consultation. Tell us your health history. Select
Right.
pick up in store or delivery. Make payment. Takes 5 minutes.
Yeah. And you can totally lie. Yeah. I have a
Yeah.
BMI of 40.
Yeah.
Not seeing me, and so what?
It was like that. There was a documentary that I was not a massive fan of, to be fair, but again, it was on BBC. That was about bariatric surgery, and you just
Yeah.
mentioned there, like if people qualify, it improves their quality of life, and as you said, people who have uncontrollable cravings and appetite. But there was a BBC documentary about people going abroad to get it because you could just get a confirmation over WhatsApp
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
do it in Turkey.
I had someone do that. And then she came home and she was so sick and had no doctor. A bariatric surgery is no joke. Like it's
No,
invasive as hell. And you shouldn't, you can, but you shouldn't go. You need a doctor to take care of you, to
Mhm.
follow you, a dietitian. Like you can get serious nutrient deficiencies, much less like
Well,
complications.
that's what I was going to ask you about, because obviously the stomach is so small that
Right.
surely then the follow up needs to be very specific in terms of the foods that
Yeah,
you're eating so that you
of
don't get
course.
nutrient deficiencies.
Yeah, there's even like there's an order in which you eat your food. You have to take vitamins. You need like blood work done. It's really, and in there you have to work up to eating food. Like you don't just like go overseas, grab it, get the surgery, and then like come home and start eating like tiny bits of food. It's like you have to do liquids first, and then you do soft solids or whatnot. But it's a huge process, and it can be so. I've seen so many complications from bariatric surgery. It is a safe surgery. I am gonna say that, but it
Mm.
has potential, like any surgery, to have complications. And if you don't have a doctor in the country who's like following you and a dietitian who's following you, super dangerous. Not worth it.
No,
No.
no, not at all. Um, right. Well, before we wrap up, I want to make sure we double back to the animal studies.
Yeah.
You mentioned I don't use animal studies where I can, and I don't use bad research. So, if a layperson is looking at someone's research claim, are there kind of buzzwords that they need to look out for? Animal studies, in vitro. Do they need to be looking specifically for randomized control trial type things?
Right. So you want to do a randomized controlled trial. You want it blinded, um, or double blinded. So they don't, people in the study don't know if they're getting the placebo or the active ingredient. You want to have a study that's in vivo, which means in something alive, but in humans. In vitro
Yeah.
means it's done in a dish in a lab or in cells. And a lot of these
Mm.
people will be like, "Oh, there's research on my, ingredient and or my supplement," and then it'll be like in friggin' cells in a lab. Like, no, that's not a human body, and neither is a rat or a bat or a pig or any of those. Like, we're not rodents. Yes, animal studies are preliminary studies, and they do count towards preliminary studies. But once they test things in animals, they should then go ahead and test them in humans before they sell them to you, because the human metabolism is not the same as a rodent or any kind of animal. So, yeah, those are the things to watch out for.
Fantastic. And tell us a bit more about your eating after 40 and why you wanted to create it, because you mentioned earlier as well how women have been generally underserved as well.
Yeah, they're so underserved, and 40 and above, in perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, there's just been such a, a lack of information and support for women, and there's a lot changing in our lives at that time. And I wanted to bring together a community of women, or in each session, I run 3 sessions a year, who could talk to each other and support each other. And I facilitate everything. It's a 8 chapter course. It takes 10 weeks because 2 of the chapters are 2 weeks long. And it goes over everything from like what's happening to your body to let's do the work on why you have this relationship with food, why you feel this way about your body, why you're making these choices around food. And then it sort of teaches or reteaches you how to make food choices and how to nourish your body and how to listen to your body and all of that. It's not like meal plans, it's not grocery lists, it's not do and don't eat this thing, it's not like weighing, counting calories, whatever. None of that.
Yeah.
If you want like a diet and you want to lose like a ton of weight, don't go on my course, because
Right.
you could lose weight for sure, 100%. And I support you in that, but it's not going to be like this restrictive thing. It's more for people who want to get away from that culture and actually live their friggin' life without having to like be on my fitness pal every day and like not eat bread.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And and the thing is that I love all of that, and particularly what you said about perimenopause and menopause, because that is a big wellness trap for women as
Oh,
well. There's
it's the
so
worst.
much out there,
Oh,
so much
it's
out there
so
about
bad.
that. About
So
yeah,
bad.
it's so bad.
I want to, if there's women, obviously women going to be listening to this, watching it, and I want to say, you don't have to punish yourself or starve yourself when you are in menopause. There are people like the Galveston diet where she's like, you have to intermittent fast and then like, eat basically what's a keto diet. And it's like, no, You don't have enough problems in your life? Do you need more? Seriously, like, let's not do that. You don't beware of people who are promising you to get your body back. Like, let's relax a little bit and friggin' age, and be allowed to age as women, and not look to celebrities, for example, and not listen to these doctors who just want to put you on another diet forever and ever. It's awful. So yeah, coming over to the light side.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. If you're listening to this and that sounds like you, yeah, massively recommend checking out that course.
Thank you. It's on
Um,
the site.
yeah, yeah. No, I'll put the link in
Thank
the
you.
show notes to the blog as well as that specific site. 'Cause I know that's like a course based site that you've got linked to your Instagram, but I'll link
Yeah,
all of that there so that everyone's got the
thank you.
information to get more Abby in their lives. So thanks for your time.
You're
Really
so
appreciate
welcome.
you
It was fun.
delivering. Yeah, thanks for delivering such value. Um, I'll get all of those linked up, and yeah, thank you again for coming on.
You're welcome.